Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, hello, welcome. Welcome to episode 2, season 7 of A Brief History of Nothing. And the big news today in 72 AD was an earthquake that occurred in Pompeii. More interesting news to follow.
Yes, that turned out to be the least of their problems. In 1869, in Victoria, in Australia, the largest ever alluvial gold nugget was found, called the Welcome Stranger. Most of it was quartz, but they called it a gold nugget. There was chunks of quartz and gold through this thing.
Alright, okay. And?
In 1905, Leo Baekeland discovers the world's second plastic after celluloid, bakelite.
Right, so that's why Baekeland.
Bakelite.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. That's okay. Now, in 1922, the big news for 1922, besides all the other big newses that were out there, the first edition of the Reader's Digest was published, and people have been regretting that ever since.
And in 1971, the Apollo 14 crew lands on the moon. Today, well, I came across a computer hall, old school computers, one of which we have here is the Commodore 64C, came out in 1984. The original 64C, what's called the bread bin, which is the more classic shape, came out in 1982 with 64K of memory. Wow. So we're going to show you this. I'm explaining the history of this machine, and we also picked up an Amstrad as well. Amstrad 286, so, we're really
I love
cutting edge.
I love the modern computers.
And they're modern computers, yes.
I bet it's got SVGA colour and everything.
No, it doesn't. It's got VGA, not SVGA.
It's not the SVGA.
And this has the Ep.2 chip.
Ep.2 what?
Video interface chip. Yes, so in the early film, mid-50s, a guy called Jack Trammell started importing Czechoslovakian typewriters, because
you do,
and put them under a brand called Commodore, and went for a while, and he decided in the early 70s he's going to start getting into computers, so into calculators. So he did that, and then basically bought out a chip fabricator called Moss Technology, who the head of what was called Chuck Peddle. And what happened was that the Texas Instruments also got into the calculator business, basically wiped out his calculator business. So Chuck Peddle went to Jack Trammell and went, why don't we start doing doing a computer thing? That happened in 1975. They went to Bill Gates and went, we want a fixed price on your Microsoft Basic, and Bill Gates, didn't thinking that Commodore would get anywhere, went, sure, not a problem. So every Commodore PET, VIC-20, Commodore 64 and 128 has some form of Commodore Basic, and it costs them less than a penny per computer to put it in. So Bill Gates was a little more careful after that.
Yeah, but he still would have made a friggin' fortune out of it anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, the guy's arguably the richest person in the world still.
Yes, and he gives billions away, literally billions.
Yeah, he has his own. He and his wife have their own charitable foundation, and they're still rolling in it. So, so they started out in 1977 with the PET, which had 4K of memory. 4K of memory, which can be upgraded. The later models of the PET basically looked like the keyboard and everything, but it had like a monitor attached to it. And the later models came out. They originally had a tape drive with like what looked, I don't know if any of you seen like a console at a petrol station. You would know what that looks like. Basically, that's what it looked like with a tape drive next to it. And eventually, they dropped the tape drive and went with a full-size, proper, easy to type on keyboard. And then in 1980, they came out with the VIC-20. Don't know why it's called the 20. The reason it's called the VIC is because Jack Peddle's company was coming out with what they call the video interface chip, which they designed for arcade games, which never went anywhere. So they decided, let's make a cheap computer for the masses, because the PET sold relatively well in the business and educational markets. So they went, we want a computer that everyone can afford. So they basically flipped the bird to all the actual computer shops at the time, and sold it in places like Kmart and Walmart. And that decision basically came out and bit them on the backside a few times, because when they came out with more advanced computers later on in the 80s, all the dealerships went, no, stick it in your left ear hole. Yeah. So it came back. That decision came back and bit them in the backside. But Trammell was like that. He was going to do things his way, and that's the way they were going to be done. Regardless, and he was as tight as a drum. And so that's why when people like Apple and IBM went to 16-bit processors and had the 286 and all those, Commodore was still using 8-bit processors in 84, 85, and it wasn't until after Jack left as they started using 16-bit processors, which is where the Amiga came from. But the 64, which is what we have here, came out in 1982. Similar sort of idea. It was a computer for the masses. It was originally $600 when it first came out, and the price dropped.
Is that US or?
That was US.
So 600 US. Well, they were basically parity then. So yeah.
Basically parity, and an Apple II would set you back twice that. An IBM would set you back. An Apple or an IBM would set you back twice that in 1982. And arguably the Commodore has slightly better graphics for gaming and so forth. Fortunately, I couldn't get any software, but I can show you some basic things that this does. You can reassign different colours. So what I will do, just to make it a bit easier for you to see, if you can see it all, is change the colour to white, which I believe I can do by doing that. So the cursor changes to white and everything is in white. Right, and you can just hit Shift and clear. So that clears the screen, and you can do simple programs. So for example, if I hit line 10, print a brief history of nothing, right? Close quotations, and line 20 is go to 10, and just and go run. It'll just keep printing out the same thing, brief history of nothing, until it runs stop, and it will stop doing it. It's quite clever. You can't do this on a DOS machine, because the DOS basically goes straight to the operating system. This was basic, so it's actually a programming language in and of itself. Didn't know that one. And you can actually, what was common back in the day, in Commodore's heyday, was to actually type in your own programs and then save them to disk. We do have a couple of disk drives here, which can be daisy-chained, one after the other after the other. The only trouble is then the Commodore will read them both as device 8, and then it will have a big panic attack and go, no, we can't do this. So you've either got to type in this long piece of code, or you've got to actually disassemble one and cut a piece of foil on the circuit board, so that one will be device 8 and one will be device 9. And then you can actually copy programs from one disk to the other. The only trouble is, because they use a serial interface that's directly addressed by the CPU, it will be the slowest piracy operation you've ever seen.
So don't do the latest movies on there.
No. I don't think a movie would fit on a 5 1/4 inch on a 5 1/4 inch floppy.
Only if it was done in stick figures.
I'm not even then. also came with tape drives as well. You could buy tape drives for a data set, which actually had a digital interface. Atari and IBM and Apple had analog interfaces, so you had to adjust volume and tone and everything. It basically was a tape recorder that you plugged into the back. This actually uses a digital interface. That means you just plug it in, put the tape in, rewind the tape to the start. What you do is you type in, so when you want to type it in, you put in load, and then it will say press play on tape. You press play on tape, and the program, it will take a long time. You did have fast loaders back in the day that would take a lot less, but if you basically just saved the file to tape and then tried to retrieve it, it would take a very 10 minutes just to retrieve it, because it's not random.
Well, the other question, something that just occurred to me was, I remember in the day people putting stuff on videotape.
VHS, that came later in the 90s with the 3 and 486s. You could actually get an interface with your IBM compatible that recorded backup data to a VHS tape, because VHS can store a lot more data than a cassette can. So that's why they did that, because by the 90s cassette drives were useless, because you had hard disks were much cheaper, much faster than tape drives. They still hung on to the 5 1/4, or even IBM hung on to the 5 1/4 drives till about, because their original 386 had a 5 1/4 drive, I thought.
Yes.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And
yes, it had the 5 1/4 and the 3 1/2, one below the other.
Yeah, and eventually we got rid of the 5 1/4 and put a CD-ROM in. But I'll just clear the screen. I said clear. Oh, okay. There we go. Now I can clear the screen, because it was expecting input from the tape drive. One last thing I want to show is that because the data sets came out first and the disk drives came out later, is that you can't just hit load, type load, and expect it to load from a disk. You can't actually do that. So what you've actually got to do is type load. Neither of these are plugged into the PowerPoint, by the way, so I can't download anything. I don't have any software to load. What you've actually got to do is load $, open quotations, $, close quotations, comma, 8, and then hit load. I'm not going to do it because I'll damage something, because again they're not plugged in. But that's how you had to load from disk, which was a little bit faster than the tape, but not much.
Yes.
And they made an awful noise.
Yeah, they did. They were sounded like an aircraft taking off.
Was the noise.
Yes, they were
yes.
hugely loud.
Alright, well, so there we go. There's a history of the Commodore 64, what you can do with it. I was hoping to get, as I said, some software, but that fell through. So, yeah, you know.
What, you can't go and buy software for it at your local computer shop?
No. These are actually worth money. If you have actually one of these or any older systems, and you're strapped for cash, clean them up, sell them on eBay, they're worth money.
Okay.
Because they're getting rarer and rarer and rarer and rarer. So,
right.
What happened, or who got born on this day?
Who got born on this day in 1788? Robert Peel, British Prime Minister and founder of the Bow Street Runners, was born on this day.
Hence why British police officers are called bobbies.
Yeah, they could call it peelers.
They were originally called peelers. Yeah, but they're also called bobbies.
Okay. Yes, well, the man that thought if you invented a gun and that was so terrible people wouldn't fight wars, Hiram Maxim invented the Gatling gun. Yes. Well,
yes.
He was born on this day in 1840.
Yeah.
That was a bit of an oops, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, the machine gun actually made wars worse, not prevented them. So, yeah, that didn't work. Also in 1840,
you may have driven on something that has his name on them.
Mm.
John Boyd Dunlop, entrepreneur. Yeah, the French don't have a word for entrepreneur.
Yeah, ask George Bush.
George W. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, and okay.
Duff McKagan.
Yes, 1963. Duff McKagan. Was the bassist for Guns N' Roses. Yeah, I thought he is anymore.
Yeah, he isn't anymore, but yeah, because apparently because Axl Rose is apparently a bit difficult to get along with.
Really?
Mm.
Okay. Can't understand why.
No.
Okay, now, in 1985, Cristiano Ronaldo, he's kicked a ball in his time. Little known footballer.
Little known footballer.
To those who the round ball game isn't a national religion, it's soccer.
Yeah, but it's football, not hand egg. Because in Australia we call hand egg football, and it's just I die a little bit inside. It's fine.
NRL is football.
No, it's hand egg.
Rugby league, rugby union are both football.
No, the hand egg.
No.
No, the hand egg.
No. Well, like soccer players, someone kicks a ball near them and they fall down screaming, rolling on the ground. Tell me that doesn't happen.
It occasionally happens.
Yeah. All right. So he was born on this day. Well, now you're up with the latest technology. Okay?
Yes. From more than 30 years ago.
Yes. Well, you're from more than 30 years ago.
Yes. 1990 will be 30 years ago in 2 years. Just let that sink in for a minute.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's us.
If you like us, hit like. Below us somewhere is a subscribe button. Find it. I did try and launch a Patreon page. See if you can find that. And support us on Patreon. Now, we'll see you on the dark side. I gave the cookies to him.
I have all the temporary internet files.
Okay.
Bye.